Hey guys, welcome to Hart-Less Performance. My name's TJ, the driver of this awesome rig right here. And today we're going to talk about King of the Hammers 2020 and what happened during our race at the 4 Wheel Parts Everyman Challenge. So, if you don't know what King of the Hammers is, you have to check it out. It's one of the best off-road events in the world to date. It's a whole week and a half of different types of off-road racing, from side-by-sides to dirt bikes to full-on Ultra 4 cars, trophy trucks, and all the wildest creations you can think about. And not to mention, there's a lot of cool small things. Like this year, there was a jump competition, there's a rock bouncer shootout in the rocks where there's a ton of carnage. But the best part about it all is it's a huge family event. Everybody and their family comes out. You hang out for a week and a half on the lake bed, have a great time, visit people you haven't seen in a year, maybe even a couple of years, and it's got something for everybody. From your gearheads to your family, man, to your kids, there's something for everybody. Now, what we race is the Everyman Challenge presented by 4 Wheel Parts, and that's a limited class race. We have certain restrictions for our cars where we go and we tackle most of the same trails that they do with the Unlimited race. This is actually our second year running it. Last year we brought this car in all bare metal, no stickers, no painted stuff, no nothing. And we ended up losing a critical steering bolt at mile 29.6. That took us out of the race. We duct taped it back together, got it back to the trailer. But it kind of dampened our day because, you know, when you come so far and it ends so soon, you don't really get a taste of what the race is about. Fast forward to this year, we made a bunch of changes. We made a cool color scheme and we were ready to rock. You know, we wanted to get down to the desert, do some shock tuning, some engine tuning, and really be prepared for the race. Great plan, didn't quite work out that way. We made our way down from Canada and we were there for opening day. However, we had engine issues pretty much right from the get-go. At first we thought that we were just running lean because the tune wasn't great, but after a day of playing with the tune and making minor improvements and thinking we're getting somewhere, and we found out that our injectors, the little filters in them, they were actually clogged up with material from when I had originally made fuel lines almost 4 years ago for this system. So once we found that, we were able to strip that, clean that up, change the injectors out, get our engine tuning down, which was great. We started dialing it in. We learned a lot in a couple of days. However, we didn't have any more time to do shock tuning, so we took the shock tuning that we had and decided to enter the race with it. We had to adjust our driving just a little bit because we knew that if we pushed too hard, our rear end was going to buck, and that meant that our speed in the desert was going to be limited. Either way, we went with it, we passed tech, we passed through contingency, saw a lot of familiar faces, met a lot of cool people, handed out some stickers, you know, if you got one, and made our way to the start line on Wednesday morning. For the start of the race, we were scheduled to start in last position in the 48-4500 mixed class. Reason for that is we decided not to qualify this year again, and that's really because I don't have a ton of seat time as a driver. This car doesn't have a lot of driving time to be proven, so we wanted to start the race in a position where I wouldn't feel like I wanted to try to reach out and touch the top guys or people in front of us. I wanted to start and race our own race. And that's what we did. So we started in the rear. Now, some people didn't show up to the start line because of mechanical failures. We got bumped up a little bit in the start order. Not a big deal, but we ended up going out still just in front of the 4600 class guys. Off the start line, we had the GPS map. We had no pre-running time in because of the engine issues we had. So the first 6-10 miles were way rougher than we thought they were going to be. We were told that they were going to be rough, but we didn't expect them to be that rough. A lot of ups and downs, small 10-15 foot elevation changes, bumpy, rocky trails to make your way through. And with the lack of rebound in our rear suspension, it made for a bit of a wild ride. And every once in a while, we'd get a little front wheelie going on where we had to compensate for. That environment messed us up just a little bit. We weren't really expecting that off the hop, but once we got into it, we started going pretty good. We got caught up at the sandhill at mile 3, where a lot of other guys got caught up too. When we came over the little berm, if you didn't know it was there, it was hard to make up for it in terms of speed. There's already guys stuck on the hillside, somebody winching on one side, and we even saw one of our friends, Alex McNeil from True North Racing, come barreling in only to get halfway up the hill and blow his hydraulic steering ram out of his car. Unfortunate for him, but they got to continue on. We passed him at that point and mixed into the further trails. It was pretty cool at this point because we got to see a bit of the differences in vehicle suspension and kind of where the 45 and 48 4800 classes had a bit of an advantage over the 4600 classes because of the different wheelbases or suspension design. We were able to go a little bit faster than the guys that we were around in the tight, twisty, rocky trails, and the bigger tires helps as well. But it was just a cool kind of put a realistic what to expect in our minds, because we'd never really raced too much with 4600 class cars and never really in the position to pay attention to what the other cars were doing. So it was a really cool experience and gave me a lot of appreciation for those drivers in the stock class. Like, those guys are nutty. They put their cars through the craziest things, and they do it with finesse. So shout out to those guys. But moving on from there, we headed into pit 1. Originally, we weren't going to stop at pit 1 on the way out. However, with how rough the first section had been, I just wanted a quick double check, make sure that nothing was loose and that the car was still holding its own. The guys checked it over, and while they were doing so, the live camera crew was actually on site, and they filmed a little bit of our friend Joey from True North, then moved on to our car and used it as a great example of some of the limited class restrictions and what you can see on a car. Check out that footage right now.
There's TJ Hart, another one of our Canadians in remote pit 1. Look, he's even got the Maple Leafs right there in the V-lock rings.
And he's got a beaver riding a polar bear. That is, you can't get much more Canadian than that there, bud.
You absolutely cannot. The only way that could be more Canadian is if the beaver had a little bubble above its head that said sorry. But you can see them out of the car doing some work on it.
That's pretty cool, wasn't it? It was great this year to see how much coverage the Canadians got in terms of the live stream coverage and some of the highlights. You know, in previous years, you wouldn't even know Canadians had been down there, but this year for sure, a lot of us got on a little bit of camera time, got our 15 seconds of fame, and gotta say, great job, guys. The live stream gets better every year. So moving on from pit 1, we headed out towards Cougar Buttes and the Notches. Now, before this point, I'd never driven a natural rock trail. We have a couple little small rock trails up here around our place, but nothing that you would consider a real rock trail. So we got into the rolling rocks and the Notches, and it was pretty cool. You know, there was broken cars all over the place. There was a rollover car right away. Terry Madden was directing guys, so it's one of those, like, I know who that guy is. Thanks, man, as you're driving through, and he's doing such a great job navigating everybody around the rollover. So we moved our way through there, kind of learning how the vehicle controlled in the rocks. Really impressed in how it handled and how the drivetrain setup worked. So we know that we have a solid base there, and we ended up being surprised as we were coming out to come down the final hill, and we look up in front of us, and there's our friend Jeff Hadamaki from BC and Lyndon Shepard from True North Racing. 2 more Canadians that had started 10-20 positions in front of us, and we don't know if everything just got kind of bunged up in there and everybody slowed down, or if we were just able to make decent time even with our less than spectacular shock tuning. But we caught up with them. It was cool to see them, got to see their cars rocking over the rocks a little bit, and then they took off in the desert as we came down the final rocks. We were cruising for a little while, did pretty good, getting comfortable, getting in a rhythm, and then we saw Jeff. Unfortunately, he was out with a broken steering knuckle. Nothing we could do to help him. So we continued on. Shortly after that, I stopped to visit nature, and that's when I turned on this GoPro that you can see now. You can get a little bit of footage and see what we were driving through and some of the bumps and stuff. Lots of broken down cars, link mounts everywhere, steering stuff everywhere. You know, it's a super brutal race. There's no way to get around it. You know, most people are gonna break something. I don't think any car comes out unscathed, and we certainly didn't. Mile 50. We were doing a slight right-hand turn in this nice little sand trail, and as soon as we got kind of into the bottom of it, smoked the front right tire off a rock. It bounced the car sideways, smoked the rear as well, blowing out the sidewall, and that was it for that tire. We had to stop and change it. Now, we stopped, we changed it. First time we'd ever changed a tire in a race condition on this car, and it went okay. You know, we hadn't practiced it, and the tool storage situation is less than ideal right now. So it took us about 10 minutes to do the actual tire change, but we were about 25 minutes in the car by the time we stopped and found the tools, did the change, found the tools again because we kept losing them on the hood and on the roof and stuff, and then packed it all up. We had a snack too, maybe. So we got that tire changed and we got back on course. We had 14 miles left to pit 1, and I knew that we had to take it easy because we didn't have any more spare tires on board. So I still think I took it easy, but Mitch, my co-driver, said I was still pushing it a little bit at times, spinning the tires maybe when I shouldn't. But anyway you shake it, we made it back to pit 1. We had no further issues until we got to pit 1, which is when we found the real issues. So we pulled into pit 1, and this was our planned stop. We were going to take fuel, get a good look over the vehicle, and then keep continuing back to main pit. However, we pulled in. We had noticed a couple jam nuts were loose when we did our tire change, so we told the guys about it. They started checking that over, and probably about a minute, 2 minutes into being in the pit, one of the guys looks at the front axle, looks at me, says, "You might want to get out and come check this out." So reluctantly, I got out of the car. I didn't want to get out if I didn't have to. However, it was a good call by our crew because we took a look at the front axle, and she's broken. Any way to put it, we bent the axle housing, we broke a bunch of the welding, and we're not going to go in depth with that right now, but if you want to check it out, we're going to do a video series on replacing this front axle, and we're going to talk about what we're replacing it with, why, things we're going to do to strengthen it, and what actually went wrong. But anyway, you look at it, our race was done, and I made that decision because the further breakage wasn't a question of if it's going to break, but rather a question of when and how much is it going to cost. By pulling out of the race at pit 1, it is more cost effective because we didn't have to replace any other components we could have lost if the axle had continued braking the way it was. And I'm thinking about components such as shocks, bump stops, engine. If we had continued and we had lost one of the link mounts, then with the axle rolling and everything, there's a lot of damage that could have been done. So we called it there. We hung out at pit 1. We helped the rest of our True North friends through the pits, and then we sent off back to Hammertown. It was another year wrapped. We made it 29.6 miles the first year. We made it 64 the second year. The car is doing a lot better than it was the first time we went down, but it definitely needs a little bit more work. We got to do some more tuning. However, overall, I think that we're getting there. None of us are coming from a racing background. None of us are coming from a real heavy off-road background. Most of us are from quads and sleds and things like that, but nothing to this extreme. So we've done a lot of learning in the last couple of years, and we're going to put it together and make our package even better for next year. And that's it for our 2020 King of the Hammers experience, where we once again raced the Everyman Challenge. King of the Hammers, the entire week, the experience is just so crazy and mind-boggling. You can't capture it all into a short video, and you can't really explain it with words. Some people call it the Burning Man for off-road. Other people call it like the craziest party you'll ever be to. But you really, really have to experience it to see all the little things. Literally something for everybody, and it's like its own little world for a whole week. You get away. That brings me into friends and family. You guys all know who you are. You've been supporting for years, and I can't say thank you enough. Friends and family, you guys have helped me build the car. You've helped me learn about building the car. You've gotten me to races when I haven't been able to pick up some of the work on the car. And at the races, you guys support all the time. We had 13 people come down to King of the Hammers this year, 7 of which who had never been down to it, 2 of which didn't even know what the event was weeks before it happened. So awesome you guys came down. Huge thank you. And I know that you're all going to be back next year, right? Yeah, some of you buying trucks and loading them up as pit stuff. I'm watching you. Anyways, thank you guys so much. Without you, it wouldn't be possible to do this. My next thanks goes out to, Race Cat's getting a little antsy here. But my next thanks goes out to the organizers, the volunteers, and the fellow racers who have made King of the Hammers and Ultra 4 Racing what it is today. Without you guys and all the groundwork you've done, we wouldn't be able to come down and race this really, really cool event and escape our frigid Canadian weather for a couple weeks of awesome California sun and sandstorms. So thank you guys for making it what it is. I can't wait to see how this event continues to grow and to be part of its growth and where we all take it. Finally, I want to thank On-Site Fire Protection here in Edmonton, Alberta for certifying all of our fire extinguishers and making sure that we're safe on course. And I'd also like to thank Chuck from Chuck's Fab Shop for helping me weld the core of this car when we first started building it. some of the design aspects, but also being a great friend and mentor in terms of troubleshooting and trying to figure out when we have issues where we can look at potential solutions. So thank you guys for everything as well. This video is coming to a close. However, don't go too far, because in the coming weeks and the foreseeable future, we're going to start putting out videos involving vehicle repair, modifications, fabrication, background, race prep, what we do around here, because I want to share a bunch of the tips and tricks that I have found and developed or used over the years to help you guys out as well. Also, RaceCat says you can't go anywhere because he'll come find you and sit on you and not let you do anything productive if you go away. So keep your eyes open next couple of weeks. Hit that subscribe button so you can catch more of what we're doing, and we'll see you in the next video, guys. Take her easy.